All right. One of the thing that confuses people when we say the Messiah is not God in the flesh is because I hear people say this a lot. Like, well, he was there at the beginning. He made everything. It says God made everything, but that the Messiah made everything. And so, how does this work if the Messiah is not God? Okay, so here's a kind of a worldly example to try to explain this. Let's say you've got um, Joe Schmo Construction, right? And Joe Schmo starts this construction company, and then he's doing well, and he wants to expand. So he hires an employee. Then he sends that employee out on a job. That employee does well, and somebody says, "Oh wow, who did all this work?" And they say, "Oh, it was Joe Schmo Construction." Joe Schmo, the owner of the construction company, is going to get the credit for doing that, even though it was his employee who actually did the work. Then it's Joe Schmo who's going to turn around and say to the employee, "Wow, we got a lot of compliments on that. Great job." Right? And he gives the glory to his employee. It's the same thing. Jehovah, first of all, he created Yeshua, the very first creation, day one. Let there be light. Yeshua says, "I am the light of the world." So Yeshua is the first creation on day one. And then Jehovah gave his authority to Yeshua, gave his power to Yeshua to go and create everything else. So Yeshua then created the heavens and the earth and the firmament and the sea and the land land animals and the sea animals and the plants and the herbs and the people. But God gets the credit for it because God gave him the power to do it. Just like Joe Schmo gave the employee the tools and the materials to go and do the project, Joe Schmo gets the credit. Then he gives the acknowledgement to his employee. God has the power. He creates Yeshua. He gives Yeshua the power to then go and do all of these things. And Yeshua does all of this work. God gets the glory for it. God made everything. And then God says, "I'm going to give my authority and the glory. I'm going to glorify my son, Yeshua." And then Yeshua turns around and he glorifies God. And he says, "Why do you call me good? There's not one good but the Father in heaven." Right? And so it's God's power given to Yeshua. And Yeshua turns around and he says, "Thank you, Dad, for giving me this." And God says, "Well done, son. This is my son in whom I am well pleased." And then Yeshua turns around and he says, "Thank you so much, Dad." And then Yeshua gives his authority that comes from the dad to the servants. The servants pick up their staff of authority and they follow him and they do as he did, which is to keep the 10 Commandments, eat clean, and teach others to do so. And so now we have the authority to judge righteous judgment, but we give the glory back to Jehovah and Yeshua, who then glorify us, and we glorify them, and Jehovah glorifies Yeshua, and Yeshua glorifies Jehovah, and Yeshua glorifies the servants, and the servants glorify Yeshua and Jehovah, and round we go. But it all starts with Jehovah. None of it would be possible without God, because God gives the power to everybody. That's why at the very end of the book, when the servants become the bride of the Messiah, and then what does Yeshua do? He gives everything back to his Father because it all belongs to him in the first place. So hopefully that made sense. Yeshua is the first creation. He's not God in the flesh. God cannot be around sin. He's too big. It says that he's too big to be in the earth. It says, Yeshua says, "No man has seen the Father or heard him." God can't be tempted. Yeshua was tempted. There's so many things there's so many ways that you can see that Yeshua is not the Father. But the confusion comes from the church's crappy explanation of this Trinity that they've made up, because that's a pagan it's a pagan understanding that there's a Trinity that comes from Nimrod worship. The church adopted it, and then they try to explain it using the scriptures, but there's so many examples of how Yeshua is not God in the flesh. And so hopefully I explained it well enough to understand how it is that if God created everything, but Yeshua created everything, but Yeshua is not God. And if you have any questions, please ask.